Hey everybody, it's Scott Lawrence here, founder of Lawrence Hypnotherapy and quit smoking coach. And if you haven't heard of Michael Wong, that I've been lucky enough to score an interview with him today. So Michael is owner of Alpha Hearing. He's an audiologist, owner and partner owner of Melbourne's #1 client-focused hearing care provider. And so an audiologist is basically the person you would see if you had a hearing problem. And today I've got a couple of questions for Michael, because if you haven't heard his story, that in the last year or so, or even like throughout his life, that he's had a lot of experiences which has really made him passionate, really made him motivated into the topic of hearing and sound, and why, I suppose, like in the way he described it to me, that it's without hearing, without sounds, we don't really have our relationships at the level that we want to have them at, that we can't really relate to each other, we can't really be people at that same level, that since the dawn of time, I suppose the way he put it, is that that's the way we've been able to talk to each other, through using the tools that either nature or whatever it is has provided us. And so welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Scott. Nice to be here.
Basically what I want to find out to begin with is that whatever I said an audiologist is, like what, I've got a very basic idea that I know some parts about it, we've had a conversation, but what is it? What is an audiologist?
Yeah, so basically we're the professionals that you would see if you thought you had a problem with your hearing. And even if you didn't think you had a problem, sometimes your partner or significant other might think you have a problem, and you'd come to someone like myself to get your hearing professionally tested. And then if you did have a hearing problem and you wanted to look at treatments, we're the people that can help you treat your hearing problems. At the end of the day, my job is to make your hearing as good as it can be. And there's many reasons why we're passionate about making people's hearing as good as it can be. Recently I'm a father. I've got a young family. I've got relationships that are very important to me, and I realised quite quickly that the ability to hear is vital to these relationships. If you can't hear your children, if you can't hear your baby crying, if you can't hear your partner asking to do something, it's going to affect your relationship, believe me. So hearing from that point of view is essential.
Yeah. So obviously being a dad, being able to hear your children, how is hearing an important thing in relationships, or how is that involved?
Well, there's an interesting quote that says if you lose your vision or sight, you lose contact with the world. But if you lose your hearing, you lose contact with people. And that's absolutely true. We're human beings, we're social beings, and we are human because we communicate with each other. That's what sets us apart to any other species. And the ability to communicate hinges on two things: your ability to be able to speak, to talk, and your ability to hear. So if you lack one of those two things, you're not able to communicate well. And that's why hearing's vital, because if you don't have good hearing, you don't have good communication, and guess what? Your relationships suffer.
Yeah. I think also, I suppose, like in my relationships, that I was worried about, because I've got this passion for music. And I grew up on, whether it was Beatles in the old days, then Pink Floyd, and then when I went to high school, whether it was like Spider Bass, Blink-182, or whoever it was that was... And then there was Korn and all these other bands coming out at the time. And then some of us started to go to concerts, and we were given all these warnings about hearing, about these loud areas. And we didn't really, I guess, like as kids, we didn't really understand what that was. But I would think that for me, music's such an important part of my life. I love the guitar, I love piano, I love listening to it. And I just couldn't imagine a life without music. So I guess like anyone who else is into music, or music may not be your thing, but it could be, whether it's not just singing or instruments, it could be just communication in general.
That's right. It could just be conversing with the other person. So just being able to talk to another person could be vitally important to your ability to relate to that person.
Yeah. I've actually got a challenge for people that this is something, it's almost like a joke that I heard, that, you know, in movies, those sound effects, they're basically the part that really connects us emotionally. They've said basically that they connect with, in sci-fis now, it's blue and yellow, and that's how you make a movie trailer. You just have lots of blue light going on, have yellow light going on. The rest is them just like basically throwing a bunch of noises at us. And so if you go and watch Star Wars on mute, you'll find out that it's actually not all that interesting. Or if you can get a copy of Star Wars without the music, the dialogue just doesn't seem to have like that same effect. like there's all these kind of the marchy, the pace, like whether it's Darth Vader's theme, it's this impending onslaught that's coming towards you, and you can kind of feel it in your skin. Or I don't know if you've ever seen Back to the Future.
Yeah, for sure.
Where you can hear the Jaws theme as like they're in the car and there's
highly emotive. Music is highly emotive, and it does enroll us in every aspect of life. Without it, we know that you don't feel connected to what's going on around you.
Yeah.
So what you just said makes a lot of sense with how the theatre and cinema really try to target their audience.
Yeah. And so you had something else you wanted to tell us about, like hearing being a value of yours or a challenge.
Yeah, well, I really came to understand that hearing is vital for good relationships. And a lot of people that I deal with say, well, is it really that important to correct my hearing? Can I just get by? And I say to them, if they want average relationships, then sure, keep going on with average hearing. But if they want their relationships to be as rich and as full and as love-filled as they want, then they need to make sure that their hearing is as good as it can be.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We make sure that their hearing at every point in their life is as good as it can be.
Is your hearing as good as it can be? That's a good challenge.
It's a great question, yeah. And I guess I challenge everyone out there to take a step up and say, well, look, I want to make sure my hearing is as good as it can be, and I'll do what I can to make sure that is the case. First step could just be as simple as coming in to see someone like myself and just getting a hearing check.
Yeah. So there's also like the future of or you've got this vision of Australia in general, actually, and into like how this is affecting us all. And so what would you say is your future of this?
Well, I think I can see it happening now. My country, Australia, is a country where there's an ageing population, and we're living longer. We've got better access to medicine, education, and as we get older, we want to make sure that our lives are enriched and that we participate as completely as we can. Now, you can only do that if your communication with others is sound, and you can only have sound communication through good hearing. So I think the future of hearing is bright because people realise that they need good hearing to remain active in their communities, to remain active with their friends, to hear the grandkids. And we see more and more people coming in every day wanting to get a start on managing their hearing problems.
Yeah, absolutely, because as you were saying, Australia's an ageing country, and it's only going to become more and more of an issue that we're going to be asking ourselves in our relationships with, like, I suppose, my love of music and just everything else that's happening in our lives. It's going to become the way we communicate, that it's really, are you communicating or are you not? And that's all, a lot of it's based on sounds. And so there were some myths that you wanted to share as well, and you remember that just offline I was telling you this story about my experience with my car. And so there was this thing I had in my head because I got hit with an $8,000 bill for maintenance because I hadn't taken my car for maintenance so long. And when you drive your car there and you never know how much they're going to charge you until a couple of hours later when they call you, and then there's something they pull on you where they start to say, we legally can't actually let you drive the car away. And if ever you've been burnt, like if ever you had your hand on the stove or something, it's a bit sensitive. So if anyone ever goes near that spot again, you're a little bit sensitive and you're a little bit protective of that spot. So for me, I was so protective of me taking my car to a mechanic to get a service that I actually had 6 months of my life in my car with a flat tyre that I would pump up every morning. I would drive. It would take me an extra 20 minutes in the morning, every morning, to drive to the nearest petrol station with a pump the tyre up. And eventually, when I got sick of this and my wife told me, you know what, Scott, it's absolutely time for you just to get a new tyre, I thought, no, I'm going to get an $8,000 bill. It cost me, what was it, $30. And what did it cost? Like in time, about 20 minutes, I think I got a coffee, and the guy was waiting there, and the service was amazing. So when I get this idea of like getting a hearing check, I get this idea that it's basically, I'm going to turn up, they're going to charge me hundreds of thousands of dollars for the consultation because it's an expertise. They've been at school for so many years that I'm going to be trapped into this fee. They're going to tell me that my hearing's terrible. They're going to tell me there's nothing they can do. Or they're going to give me a hearing aid, which is so clunky that there goes my social life for the rest of my life.
Look, I can absolutely understand you saying that. We see this all the time, people presenting somewhere and having an experience and getting a perceived idea about what it means to correct their hearing and what it means to have a hearing aid. What I can tell you is that a lot of that comes down to who you're dealing with. And I know there'll be a lot of people out there that have presented and might even have hearing aids, might not be happy with them. And that's why we've set up the business the way we have. We're very customer focused. That's why we're different. We want to spend time to get to know you and your specific needs. We want to make sure that we're delivering a service that's actually valuable to each person that we see. And from that point of view, we offer no risk to our service. We allow you to come in, we sit down with you and we talk you through the issues. We talk you through the treatment options. We make you, we empower you with the knowledge to make decisions for yourself. And then we can choose technology and devices that have features that meet your needs. The best thing is we allow you to trial the technology. So we can set up some hearing aids, let you see what they look like, let you hear what they sound like, let you touch and feel them, and then we let you take them home so that you can interact with your family, your friends, the people that are really important and that matter to you in your life in the comfort of your home. Not just in my clinic, but actually take them home and see how they go in the real world, and then you come back and tell us how it is. We only want people that are actually getting value and using their devices to go through our programs. And that's how our business works. We get a lot of word of mouth referrals, people that have come through our programs and that are happy that they're getting outcomes, and that's the only way we want to work.
Good. So it's really simple and easy, I suppose, just like that car tyre story.
Yeah.
There's all these fears in people's heads, but if they just come and try it out,
Yeah.
they'd notice that you're a friendly guy.
Just come and meet us. We're very friendly here. We're very approachable. We just want you to come in and meet us and get a feel for how we do things. And if we can help along the way, that's what we're here to do.
Good.
A big myth in our industry is, well, if I had a hearing problem or a hearing loss, I'd know about it. Well,
But how would you?
yeah, I would say, how would you? Is that the case? I think the only way that you would really know is by coming in to get your hearing checked regularly by someone like myself, by an audiologist. The truth of the matter is that hearing loss is it's silent, it's very gradual, and there are no symptoms to it. So I often say to people when I'm consulting that if they're losing 1 to 2 decibels of hearing every year, that's almost imperceivable. But consider this. If they were losing 1 to 2 decibels of hearing every year since they were 30 and now they're 60, that's 30 years of loss. It's a 30 to 60 decibel loss of hearing. You would absolutely notice that. To put it in perspective, the 60 decibel loss of hearing would be like me going out and finding as much blue tack as I could find, jamming it into my ears, then getting masking tape and taping over my ears, and then putting the biggest set of headphones on over the top. And that's what I would hear if I had a 60 decibel hearing loss.
So that sounds pretty extreme.
It's extreme, and if you consider that that's where you could be, how would you know that? Because your brain is always changing and it's plastic, and you've probably forgotten how you heard when you were 20 years old.
Exactly. The same as because I help people get off cigarettes. There's a guy called Alan Carr who's the American authority on getting people off cigarettes, and a challenge or a question he likes to ask people is, can you think back to the day where you said, that's it today, I'm going to become a full-time smoker? And you'll find that day never happened. Why? And you'll know that when we talked about this, is that it creeps up on you slowly. It's 1 a day, it's 2 a day, it's a pack a day, it's 2 packs a day, and then it's $10,000 a year. The same thing happens with hearing loss. That whole example, I'm imagining now people, even as you were saying, young people with headphones, blue tack and all of that on, but it grows slowly. And it's like that saying, you can boil a frog alive if you put it into the cool water and boil it slowly enough. But if you put a frog into boiling hot water, it'll jump back out again. And so we're like those frogs when it comes to our hearing. So if you're happy to play a game that we call True or False.
Okay.
Only old people can have hearing loss.
Well, that's false. you want me to elaborate?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Look, by far the greatest prevalence of hearing loss occurs when we're older because the hearing system wears and tears like a car engine. So the more you use it, the more you lose it. But in this day and age, we see generations that are younger presenting with hearing loss. Consider noise and how that affects your hearing irreversibly. Consider the workplace and the noises that you're exposed to there. We're seeing baby boomers presenting with hearing loss because they were the generation that used to rock out at rock concerts. And they didn't think twice about standing in front of a live stage that was putting out 110 decibels of sound. So that's like a jet plane taking off. And it's an absolute myth, it's false, that hearing loss only affects you as you get older. It can present at any age.
Wow, okay. So another one is that people like to say that when your hearing goes, that we've heard a saying that your other senses can become stronger. And so something I've heard from people is that they want to actually get, I don't know, these like Superman type eyes and Superman type touch and smell senses. That is it true that if the hearing goes, that all of their other senses are going to be that of, like, say, the Incredible Hulk? Or
Yeah, well, I'll answer that with a false, and I'll say to you, if you love your music, and let's use the Beatles as an example, and you said to me that if you lost your hearing, your sight would allow you to enjoy the Beatles the same way, I would argue that cannot happen. It's because we have different senses for different reasons.
yeah,
And if God wanted us to be able to communicate with our eyes or our smell or our sense of touch, maybe he wouldn't have created us with ears, but we got ears for a reason. Our auditory system has a purpose, and it's a very important. It comes back to the ability to communicate. Yes, we can use sign language, it's a visual language, but is it as effective as auditory verbal? I would argue that it's probably not. And I don't think there's any scientific research to show that if you lose hearing, you become more acute in other senses.
yeah. Because as we were saying, it's a myth.
Yeah, it's a myth.
So as far as our audience, like, why would they be the perfect people to take on your challenge of asking, is your hearing as best as what can be?
Well, it's interesting. Just recently there's been a lot of research coming out that shows that cigarette smokers are twice as likely to have hearing loss than people that don't smoke. And I found it interesting that you've helped a lot of people kick the habit of cigarette smoking, and that's a great thing. But I wonder how many of those people have actually gone in to get their hearing checked. I think that with the studies that are coming out, if there's a link there and you haven't had your hearing checked and you're committed to making your hearing as good as it can be, that's the first step. Just come and see me, have your hearing checked. It's quick and simple and it won't cost you anything.
So it's free?
Yeah, well, look, because we've connected and I've met you and you've met me, I'm happy to offer the initial hearing test for free. If that's going to be valuable to some of the people that you've helped in the past, and I'm happy to get involved and help them there too. And then the only commitment I would ask from them is that they are committed to making their hearing as good as it can be. That's all.
Excellent. Well, it's very kind of you to say that if you're taking on the challenge, is your hearing, is your relationship, do you believe that hearing is an important part of your life? I would say yes, hearing is a very important part of life. If you believe that to be true, if you're willing to take on the challenge, then absolutely, I'd be taking Michael up on that offer. And so I know something else that you're quite passionate about is like the distinctions that make you different as not just an audiologist, but as a person who basically cares for the people you treat. What would you say, what is it that makes you different? What makes you stand out?
Well, I think I've come to learn how important hearing can be. And in my 15 years of clinical practice, I deal with people one-on-one, and I see the difference I can make to their lives when we get in there and help them manage their hearing problems. The difference is that I want to do this on a larger scale, and the way that I do that is by helping as many people as I can. And the challenge is getting to these people, but I think once they come here and they see what we're all about, they'll realise that we are focused on customer outcomes. We really do want to empower people with better hearing, because we want our community to be the closest community can be. Better relationships, better connections. At the end of the day, we don't want community to be isolated and fragmented. It's a lot better to be able to be talking to your neighbour, interacting with the local Probus Club or local Rotary Club, and enjoying life. I think that's the bottom line. I think I'm not so much a hearing care provider as I am a person that has the skills, knowledge and attributes to help people connect.
Yeah, like you're just here to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
And absolutely, we'd say being part of the community hearing is a very important part of that.
Yeah, so if you wanted to get your hearing tested, it's as simple as calling the clinic, 9807 3007, and you can also check the website,
yep.
www.alphahearing.com.au. It's a good source of information. Or you can contact Scott and he can put you in touch with myself. He's got some vouchers that we've given him that can help you redeem your free hearing check. But I would just say that if you are happy to accept the challenge put out to make your hearing as good as it can be, let's take that first step and let's get started.
Yep. And because there is a limit to the amount of vouchers that we've been given, if you could just click the link underneath the video and we'll get you one of those vouchers. Well, thank you very much for your time, Michael, and it's really interesting hearing, I guess like one of my favourite takeaways of this is that I had no idea that a creeping up effect of sounds, I mean, like I'm just looking at that imagery again, like the headphones, the blue tack in the ears, and quite frankly it's a bit scary.
It is, absolutely. I think the more awareness about hearing that we can put out into the community, the better. It's actually quite opportune. Hearing Awareness Week is at the end of August, so next month. So it's probably quite timely that we're having this meeting and having this chat and talking about hearing and hearing loss.
Yeah, excellent. Alrighty, so be sure to tune in for the next video.
Great.